For my final assignment, I wanted to make a max patch for some friends of mine in a band called Falconero. They're a drummer and bass player duo, and the bass player makes and manipulates bass loops live. He's currently using the Boomerang and Line 6 guitar pedals as loopers. I wanted to make a patch that can be calibrated as a guitar pedal and fit right into what they already have and give them more functionality. I'm going to start by looking right here. This is the main level that will be calibrated to an amp. Next to that is the click level that the drummer will be listening to. He'll be the one controlling the laptop, starting and stopping all the songs. Here's where you can start the track, or you can use a spacebar. You can use any click track sound that you want simply by hitting replace. Here's a clear all. This clears all the samples and brings everything to a default setting. Here are the presets, and you can set any value on this page with a preset. And here's the sampler. I have 5 separate samplers, and they're completely independent with all of their functions. They have pitch, volume, decay, time signatures, 4 bars, 2 bars, and 1 bar of 4/4, and a couple 3/4, and a 5/4. Each sampler has 20 seconds of sample time allocated to RAM. The 4 bars of 4/4 is the longest amount of time and can go all the way down to 48 beats per minute. You can trigger the samples from this sequencer live, or you can have a pre-made preset if you want. Let's open the patcher for sampler 1 and see the engine that actually runs the sampler. I organized this patcher according to functions. Let's start by looking at a sampler. You can see that this is a buffer, so it's going to RAM, and there's 20 seconds. And here are the record functions. This area is timing, and this is a whole note being translated to milliseconds. And it's this area that locks everything to a click track. Here's the playback area, and down here is a sequencer. I'm going to open up the sequencer patcher and see the engine that actually runs that as well too. Up here is what controls the pitch and time of the sample. This can also be controlled with an external control, which we'll be going over in a little bit. And the loop controls are connected to right here on the main page. This box is where you pick the sampler that you want to edit. Right now sample 1 is selected, and I'm changing the start time of the triggered sample and loop. And now if I go to this other controller, I can change the endpoint of the sample loop. And now you can change anything in this global loop control here, or with an external control on the fly, which we'll turn our attention to right now. The whole objective of these controllers is to have the bass player not have to look at a computer while he's playing. This controller is the Akai LPD8, and we'll look at the loop controls to begin with. Knob 1 is what we use to pick the sampler that we want to edit. Knob 2 is directly related to the 8 pads on the controller and is broken up into 4 positions. This is used to edit the start and end time of the loop on the fly. The first position allows you to change the start time of the first half of the loop. The second position changes the second half of the loop. The third position changes the end point of the first half of the loop. And the fourth position changes the end point of the last half of the loop. I'm going to switch this back to first position, and now use the pads to change the start time of the loop. You can see the start time of the loop changing in the waveform screen as well. Now I'm going to switch knob 2 to position 2. Now if you look at the waveform screen, you can see that position 2 takes over where position 1 left off. Position 3 and 4 work exactly the same, except it changes the end point of the loop instead. Now let's look at knobs 5 through 8 on the controller. This knob controls the pitch and speed of the sample. I'm going to open the patcher for sampler 1 so we can see the controls for it. Each sampler has its own knob. As you can see right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As I change the values for knob 5, you can see the values in the pitch control window change along with it. The rest of the samplers have their own pitch knob as well. And finally, let's look at the Behringer FCB 1010. With pedal 1 up, switches 1 through 5 become record buttons for their respective samplers. And now if I put the pedal down, switches 1 through 5 will clear this sample for their respective sampler. For switches 6 through 10, it doesn't matter if pedal 1 is up or down. These switches toggle between stop and play. And finally, expression pedal 2 is the master level going to the guitar amp.